Yeah. This is a microphone extension and then this is. Oh, just okay.
Kevin, you keep my glasses?
Did back there, we turned the lights on.
Just hollered. I should
Go back and check what I wrote.
I know, I was like, gosh, you guys to be like, oh,
Oh, that's all right, I get it. Well, I think I might have to be closer. I might have to sit up. I mean, right. I'm not sure what I told. No, I mean, that's what I actually. You know, sometimes it's good.
Pass it down and that's why I'm like, so thank you. There's one other opportunity, and it's my friend. Please announce for Val. Oh, this, I mean, the music starts, you know, I just said, let's see if I don't notice it being a song, or we have to do it.
Oh, just.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. No, that's not sold just. So I got a phone call, though, it's very interesting, so we'll see if he, actually buys. Just for one line. Right now, take order.
How are you? Good.
Contract science. That's it. Yeah, let's open that back up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was gonna give it next time.
Yeah. It sounds like.
Oh, I know.
What's the?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't. A lot and there are.
There should be some. I mean, it's still pretty, I'm still.
It's on. Do you guys hear me? Oh, yeah. I'm Jeannie, Robert Well, I live here in Fairfax, and Jeff is my neighbor. And we just really wanted to pull a group of people together, so we're trying to get our head being those, we're calling it. We just really wanted to pull other citizens in, since this is such a big conversation, about the power plant and the rezoning and all the things. We just want to have a conversation, just for more fact finding and information gathering. This isn't gonna be, it's not gonna be crazy or anything, and if anyone does start to get disrespectful, then we're gonna kindly ask you to leave. Cause this is just gonna be a conversation. Shane and Tony have been kind enough to come and answer some questions for all of us. Shane is with the Iowa DNR and Tony is with the Lynn County Public Health Department. Unfortunately, Alliant was not able to come to our town hall meeting, as we're calling it, because it wasn't an official, city meeting. So, but we put together, some handouts and stuff. Hopefully you got that. There's stuff posted on the city website. Cynthia and Chris and everyone at the city's been really great about helping support this for us so we can get information out on both sides. So this is not meant to be one side versus the other. This is just information gathering for everybody, okay? So again, we just want it to be a nice, respectful conversation. What else? I feel like I'm just repeating.
No, it's.
And I just really appreciate you guys all coming. I have no idea if anyone would even show up tonight. So.
Yeah, again, my name's Jeff Hintz, lived in Fairfax over 20 years. So Amy and I were just talking at the coffee shop one day about what's going on and the information that's been flying around. And so we just kind of talked amongst each other. Then reached out to Shane and Tony here to see if they would come talk intelligently, because they're going to be, they know a lot about these facilities, what these facilities are like, how they work, and things like that. A lot of the questions that I think a lot of us have as well. Like Amy alluded to a couple times, this is not a sided meeting. It's not for or against, it's strictly for information gathering. So we obviously want to keep it civil, ask a lot of good questions. We're going to keep it tight to our 2-hour limit. 6 to 8 is what we're shooting for. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of, I think, roll through some of the slides that Cynthia has and talk about each one. We'll let Shane and Tony speak a little bit, and then we'll field some questions from there. So just ask if you have a question, let's be respectful, wait our turn, stand up. We'll try to do a good job of repeating the question, or if somebody wants to come up to the microphone to ask their question. This is being recorded on the OWL system, and it will be posted to the city's YouTube page. So for other people that can't make it, they want to view the meeting, they certainly can. So, but we'll just kind of click through the slides real quick. Not everything made it to the information packet because we got some things that came in a little later, so I apologize for that. But this is all information that's available on the city's website. So if you want to go to the website and click through these sheets that are up there, you certainly can. So we'll just kind of work our way through some of these slides and talk a little bit about those things, and then let Shane and Tony talk, and then we'll start fielding some questions. That was for everybody. All right, I'm just gonna kind of sit over here and yell. That's all right. I don't want us to, again, it's very informal. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we have Shane and Tony introduce themselves?
Oh, that's all right. You're all good, buddy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon or good evening, I guess. I'm Shane Dye with Iowa DNR. I was actually a Fairfax resident for, 7, 8 years. Enjoyed my time here. Now I live in Hiawatha. I work out of the Manchester field office. I am the environmental protection supervisor for Northeast Iowa, so I cover 15 counties, Northeast Iowa, essentially. Not just me, I have a team of folks that are much smarter than me to help me do that, so. My main focus here tonight is just to try to answer some questions, if you guys have it, relative to, how do we permit these things? How do we determine ongoing compliance once they're built, that type of stuff? So I'll let Tony kind of introduce himself, but we're gonna try to stay in our lanes, so to speak. And so we'll try to answer the best we can, whatever question you may have for us. So thanks for coming out tonight and, look forward to having a discussion.
Good evening. I'm Tony Doherty, and I'm with the Lynn County Public Health Department. I'm in the air quality branch. I was actually worked for 26 years now, and yeah, I'll for this conversation and I'll listen to what questions you have. Do the best I can to answer what I can on this evening.
There's more chairs up front if you need to sit.
So we'll just click through some of the things that we have online. Let Cynthia click through that. So the first page just talks about what type of facility they're proposing to go into the area. So it's a natural gas combined cycle facility. So it's basically, and again, when it comes to Shane and Tony, those guys know a lot about these. So I'm just gonna touch on what the slides have on them, and then we'll go into more conversation from there. Cynthia, if you can go to the next one.
I'm trying. Hang on.
Yeah. That talks about the components of the facility. These are also all pieces of information that were at the last council meeting. But that just talks about the pieces and parts of the facility itself. This sheet is something that Shane sent me. It runs through basically the process of, and Shane, help me out on this one if you can, kind of the what they look for in the permitting process. Would that be?
Yeah, it's basically give you probably some of the terms that may come up. It's kind of a quick guide to those terms that we're gonna discuss, like, what's a construction permit, what's best available control technology, or dispersion modeling analyses, continuous emission monitoring, public involvement. So it kind of talks about basically the process, how they're gonna be reviewed, certain types of things are gonna be required, and then how the public can participate, or they get an opportunity to participate. So it's pretty high level, but we're prepared to dig in if you guys wanna talk about something a little bit more specific. So that's available. Somebody's put together quick, more kind of a for public consumption, more than technical side of things, but like I said, we'll answer those questions if they come up.
Yeah. You will hear Shane say particulates tonight, so like that word a lot.
Yeah.
This is from Brian Murda at the city. It talks about one of the concerns I know all of us have is the water consumption that this will take. So this is a letter from Brian with the city who talks about the proposed water consumption of the facility and Fairfax's current facilities to be able to handle that. So that, again, I don't want to read it word for word. I certainly can if you'd like me to. And Cynthia, if you want to zoom in just a little bit on that, if you have the ability,
I can try.
we'll touch on a couple little bullet points there. So water and water usage suggested 65,000 to 70,000 gallons per day. First and foremost, he's saying we are not going to run out of water. Currently, the city can support these quantities with no additional expansion in either water supply and treatment or wastewater treatment. Current well number 4 project and planned treatment plant, which was started in 2022, are already in process for current and future needs not related to this project. Increased water usage in the proposed area would be a benefit to the city to reduce water quality maintenance and capture additional revenue. Let's see here, what else we want to talk about with water quality was discussed with Alliance team. They showed interest in the possibility of wanting softened water to help their processes, which may be something they would assist with and could benefit the entire city, not only from water quality standpoint, but wastewater treatment as well. The infrastructure expansion in the proposed area would also benefit the city by extending the water mains to a looping system, therefore extending services closer to the future developed areas. As a point of reference, the splash pad uses over 100,000 gallons of water on a normal summer day. So if we scroll back up to the usage of the plant, it's not as much as the splash pad would use on a summer day. So, wastewater, Alliant knows a sewage lift station would need to be built in the proposed area to accommodate development at the site. They already planned on installing that infrastructure to the necessary specs for the development area. They do not have any special considerations for waste leaving the plant that could potentially alter our wastewater treatment. Additional wastewater would not present an immediate need for a treatment plant expansion. And with the additional usage, we would be at about 65% of our engineered capacity. So that's everything that's on that piece of paper. This is something that the city put together. Unfortunately, I didn't really get a good chance to read it. I got too busy at work today. But just basically states some of the benefits to the city. A generating station in the city limits of Fairfax, city control and input to a facility that will be sited within view of or close proximity to the city of Fairfax. So control over what that would look like, what they need to do around the facility, I'm assuming is what that's alluding to. Alliance continued financial assistance in growing the city's infrastructure needs. The power generating station fits into the Big Cedar Industrial Park overall plan. This proposal could stall plans for the proposed runway that's going to go to the north side. So this side of Wright Brothers that's been talked about, I'm sure we're all familiar with that conversation as well. They're estimating tax revenue generation at about $350,000 annually, so benefits Fairfax as far as that is concerned. This could also equate to additional TIF opportunity, a long-term industrial partnership with a stable and respected, well-known municipal partner, Alliant Energy. Let's see here. Generating stations are regulated by federal, state, and local governments in respect to emissions, fuel, and pricing. Alliant Energy, as well as their subsidiaries, are a large employer in Fairfax with 55 employees reporting to work in Fairfax daily. This plant, I believe, is stated to add 25 staff members is all, so it doesn't run on a large staff of people. Alliant donates $5,000 to $10,000 annually to city events, sports teams, and the fire department. If asked, they respond favorably. Estimated water and sewer revenue of $30,000 to $35,000 monthly. No risk of business failure or product marketing problems. Alliant Energy's customer base is growing and demand has increased and will continue to increase over time. This would be the most technologically advanced plant in the Midwest. Fairfax would have its first industrial user on the newly planned street improvements to 76th Avenue. Alliant will be required to participate in that street upgrade cost based on plant area. Lower input costs for Alliant already owning the property keeps the energy rates lower. A lot of us are on REC, I know, but there are Alliant users in the city of Fairfax. Alliant has expressed interest in having treated water delivered to the plant, which is possibly that they would engage in a cost share with the city to provide soft water, which the entire city would benefit from. So that's an overview of that letter. I don't remember seeing this one.
This is a report that Chris found, and it's talks about 25 small communities with power plants and just kind of reviews their benefits from.
Okay, all right.
It's multi-page.
Okay, we won't go through that one. Again, it's available on the portal. Yes, ma'am?
I do want to add to that, those 25 communities, like 23 of them were nuclear power and not the same type of plant. And one of them was a coal plant, which we don't have. So I don't know how accurate that information is because it's apples and bananas.
Yep.
Should you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things going around where we're not,
Right.
Coal, solar, wind, all those things are different than what they're proposing. So I don't know how many people in this room have driven to the facility. A couple Saturdays ago, I just wanted to see for myself, so I drove to the facility. I took a couple pictures.
In Marshalltown.
In Marshalltown, yes, sorry, in the facility in Marshalltown. So there'll be a couple pictures that are coming up. one of the photos that I took from this truck wash that's nearby, it's 2,700 and a little more feet away from the facility. Just using this and then the picture as a reference. You can click to the next one. Let's go to picture 1. I think that's that picture. Yeah, so this is the photo from the truck wash that I took of the plant, 2,700 feet away. So that's what that particular plant looks like. Now, again, we're not apples to apples with the plant. The stacks on this plant would be a little bit higher. The plant itself, I think, is a little bit taller. But again, just as a reference point.
Do you know if this was during operations or during the 4-hour shutdown, this picture?
It was a Saturday morning at like 9:30. So I didn't try to get in, but I can't answer that. But yeah, I mean, Saturday morning, 9:30, I would assume it's operating.
I have one more point. That's during the summer. This is a picture of what the plant looks like during the winter. So that's January 2025. That's what it's gonna look like, right by the sports complex. And then it's harder to see, but you can see the plumes at night. So that's what it will look like in
Oh my
January.
goodness.
And it flows, the wind flows north to west, so it's going to flow towards our city.
Hey, we're not doing this.
We're not doing
We're not doing this tonight. That's not what this is about. So I appreciate the information.
Yeah, but that's
But
what.
we're just trying to share some information.
Yep,
So,
I'm trying to share information, so
picture
we'll have
2.
to maybe.
Oh, you want this distance picture?
Yep, distance 2, sorry.
I haven't seen picture, Rita.
So distance 2 is from, they have a little like natural area outside, just outside the fence. So that's at 1,170 feet, 1,169 feet. So you're about 1,200 feet away at that point. And that's what it looks like from that vantage point. So you can see the kind of natural area that they put. That area apparently was the laydown area for construction. And then they turned it into a little walking trail and kind of a natural area after that, so.
Ask you a question. Yeah, I thought it could be different from over here, but you're showing pictures of no plumes and no smoke.
Because I went there a couple weeks ago, I didn't go there. We didn't know this was gonna happen.
I have family in Marshalltown, and I see that plant.
Okay.
Why are you showing the pictures without any of the smoke?
Sure, that's what he.
I
can speak to this, so I've been over there. So normally the plumes that you're showing there, that they're showing you, only happen during the winter when it's extremely cold. Like the plumes that you would see, there's also, you have to make sure when you're there and you look at stuff, generally as a rule, it disperses heat, but you don't see an actual plumage unless it's really, really cold. You have to be careful when you drive by and look, there's a neighboring facility, manufacturing facility by their plant that does have a ton of plumes. So sometimes when you look at that, it's not actually coming from the power plant, but generally as a rule, you can't see the plumes at this plant.
That's are you with Hawaiian or who are you with?
I'm on the city council and we did do a tour of the facility. And I have been over to look at it a couple of times at different times of the day and the week. So just so I could get better information. That's how I know.
So to answer your question,
Yeah.
this wasn't proposed in the winter, so I didn't go in the winter.
Yeah.
I'm just showing pictures. I drove there myself to take the time, took a couple pictures just to give some people some
He
time.
actually took some video and sent that to me so I could hear what it sounded like and see what it looked like. And yes, in the winter, when it gets colder, I'm assuming we will see more pictures like what you showed. Or more plume, I guess, like what you showed. So, but yes, he just went there like literally a few weeks ago. So,
The picture here shows the plume. And today we were there, that's all no plume.
Mhm.
Does that mean there's no particulates in the air?
it's because of the temperature outside. what it's-
Particulates are there, right?
So that's why we have these gentlemen
Yeah,
here.
that's
So,
what we're gonna ask them, yeah.
so, yeah.
So I can speak to the plumes if you want, I mean, but we'll just talk about Cedar Rapids here, so. Yes, as you know, we've got plenty of industry in town that's currently operating 24/7. And the plumes that you're looking, when you see the steam, you see the smoke plumes is directly related to temperature difference between atmospheric temperatures and the temperature coming out of the stack. What you want to be observant of is where that steam comes out and then where it ends. If you still see particulates in the air, then you know that your control equipment's is not doing its job as far as reducing them to the levels that they should be normally. Now, in the air quality realm of things, we have inspectors that do an EPA visible emissions certification twice a year. They call it smoke school, or you're reading opacity is what they call it. You're trying to read how much can you see through that particular smoke density? You're seeing the density of that smoke, observing that with like the sun at your back. So the correct way to observe the plume and the opacity is you have to have the sun to your back. And the EPA has this all spelled out in there, the code of federal regulations, but you're looking at, white and black smoke. And so you're reading, and tester will generate different levels of opacity, anywhere from 0, 25%, 50%, up to 100%. If you're just, that observer is just wanting to see how much of the sky behind that plume can they see. Can they see 50%? They can see 50%, then that plume has a 50% opacity, dense plume. So Lynn County's current opacity standard is 20%. It's going up to 40% because the DNR is requiring us to be no more restrictive than the state code, which that doesn't mean we're going to allow facilities to emit particulate emitting sources at 40%. We will still probably less than 20% because a typical baghouse controlled source won't see anything. But again, back to the steam plumes, like if you look at Ingredion, ADM, any source that has high heat, or they're using a sweat scrubber for control, you're gonna get the wet steam plumes. And again, what you want to look at is when you see that steam plume and you still see the trail of particulates in the air after that, then definitely know you've got something.
So when you observe the plumes, saying that that's a subjective measure, there's no way to object measure the amount of particulates.
Yeah, you can't, it's not, all it's telling you is just,
So it's
the plume density, you have to.
it's not reproducible per observer. So one person might view it as 50%, the other person might view it as 20% or 20%.
That is possible, yes. But again, every observer, as long, they go through the same certification process, and and the opacity is based off of a 6-minute average, as you're taking these readings every, I would say here, you got 6 minutes every 15 seconds, 30 seconds. The observer has to look away, then look back at the plume. So they have to kind of recalibrate the noise. They just can't stare at it, just, say, oh yeah, it's going up or down when they're doing these opacity methods. Not a whole lot of companies, all of our major sources in Lynn County, they don't want to go to smoke school. They go with the no visible emissions observation checks. So what they do is their operators, some of you may work at some of these plants, when they go out and they're looking at their various stacks around the sites, they're looking to see, they see some dust coming out, when maybe the baghouse pulses. If so, if they report down to supervisor, hey, we've got something going on with this particular stack, have to shut it down within a certain amount of time, 8 hours, go in, make the changes. They do not do the whole certification process, stand there for 6 minutes and say, okay, take all these readings, because everybody's busy. They just need to make sure that if they see a problem, it gets fixed within 8 hours for the start of the next business day per our regulations. Yes.
This may not have maybe something totally different, but I know like ADM, for instance, during the winter when it's cold, Highway 30 becomes icy. So is that a possibility with this affecting left of your road or right Village Boulevard?
It is probably, when you have an inversion situation where the air is heavier above the lower layer, and then that plume goes up, hits that heavier, comes back to the ground. Obviously, with the taller stacks, helps avoid some of that, but yeah, I mean, inversions are just naturally occurring geological events, so that could happen at this site. It's just like it could at ADM.
So, sorry, I have a question. So when you're measuring particulates by eye, that's a subjective measurement depending on the observer. Are there particulates that are coming off of the plant? Are they all carcinogenic?
No, I don't know if we could go that far to say that, but to your point, what Tony's saying is a quick way that we can use to evaluate whether or not something's wrong. If you see smoke, actual smoke, unburned carbon coming from a natural gas fired turbine like that, there's something seriously wrong with combustion. So in the permits, you'll see from the other permits, you go to Marshalltown, you'll see the opacity is at 0. Because it should be. You shouldn't see anything coming from that, from a smoke standpoint. But we have methods, EPA approved test methods, to actually figure out the actual concentration of mass coming out of that stack. So they may have to periodically prove that to us. Now, most of the time we don't do a lot of that with natural gas because there's just not a lot of particulate. That's like the best available control technology type of limit is burning natural gas, and especially in a combined cycle combustion turbine with a heat recovery boiler. That's like about as good as it gets. It's not a zero impact by any means, but it's about as good as you get for producing power with the fossil fuel is what they're proposing. But we don't just measure compliance. Like if we're trying to determine if somebody's meeting their particulate particulate matter limit, we actually have test methodologies. There's even technology that we can require, and we probably won't in this situation just because it's natural gas, that they actually put a monitor in their stack that measures particulate 24/7.
Do you mind defining particulate?
So yeah,
For me.
yeah. So anything that will condense the form of solid at standard temperature and pressure, or exists at standard temperature and pressure as a solid, that's particulate.
But
In this
what's
case, it would be
that?
what's that?
What's in that particular?
Well, it could be a
Other than-
combination of so there's not a lot of ash in natural gas. So the particulate in there it could be unburned carbon. Some of it could be carcinogenic, I don't know, that's a possibility.
I mean, how do we know that? I mean, that's.
So we do have, there's test profiles out there. Yeah, so. Yeah,
Looking over.
just like when you're driving your car, same thing, right? It's the exact same thing. Anytime you burn fuel, you don't completely oxidize that fuel. You get these partial oxidized components, and some of those could be that. Not saying that that's all of it, but that certainly could be some of it. And there are limits. So there's other regulations that apply to large sources that emit hazardous air pollutants. So they're called major sources of air pollutants. So if they have the ability to discharge more than 10 tons of a single pollutant or HAP, or 25 tons of a combination, then they're considered a major source for hazardous air pollutants. These types of facilities typically aren't. So they're just
So
not
this
classified.
facility will not have a objective measure to see how much particulate is actually.
Sure they will.
They will.
Yes.
So it's not just observer.
When we do when Tony does the calculations for this, so natural gas is mostly methane, but it's a known fuel, right? It has to meet pipeline quality that they look at all the time to measure what's in there before they send it to the customer, before it goes to your house for your furnaces, or it goes to ADM, or it goes to Alliant. They know the quality of that natural gas, right? So then they can do calculations, determine what do we expect to come off of that, depending on how you're burning it, or things like NOx or oxides of nitrogen, carbon monoxide, fine particulate matter, VOC, volatile organic compounds, things of that nature. So there's ways to calculate that based on the fuel that's being burned, and there's ways to measure it. Should we see on the regular, whether it's ADM or whoever, from their combustion turbine, if we see opacity, then we're gonna require them to stack test that. So they're gonna have to hire a third party to come in, put a probe in that stack, and prove to us while they're running maximum capacity that they're not exceeding their permit limits.
But are you constantly monitoring them to know when that event occurs?
So there'll be certain pollutants that will be constantly monitored. the ones that have the highest potential for emission from a plant like this are carbon monoxide and oxides of nitrogen. So those things are gonna be equipped with a continuous emission monitor. So there'll be a monitor, in situ monitor, that will measure those pollutants all the time. And then they have to create a report and send it to us quarterly, showing how many hours did the facility operate, how many hours did it operate in startup mode, how many hours did they exceed their emission limit, how many hours did their monitor not operate.
Is that the facility then performing that, sending that to you, or is that?
So the continuous emission monitors, the facility has to purchase those, operate and maintain them. Then we require them to prove to us that they're accurate. So is the RADIS annually now?
That is their annually, we'll have a third party come in and do a relative accuracy test. So they will challenge the facilities continuous emission monitor with this third party testing company with their status unit to make sure that they're within a certain tolerance of each other, which is, I think it's like 7% for NOx, 7 or 10%. They gotta do that annually. The other 3/4 of the year, they have to do not a full RADA, but I think it's a relatively accuracy, it's a less extensive one. But then on top of that, there's also daily calibrations that the facility will do, also on that monitor for that particular pollutant. So, I mean, currently, facilities like, cardio, ADM, Align, and they've got some emission monitors on some of their largest emitting sources. And some of these are spelled out in the EPA regs. EPA has a regulation for turbines, and so, the facility will have to meet those emission limits that are established in the EPA regulation, but then obviously, if this were to go here, they're gonna probably need to meet some more stringent restrictions just based on the air shed around, so, you're going to get, basically the lowest emission rates coming out of this plant, if we were, we're fortunate. We live in a county, a city, state that we are in attainment for all of these air pollution, all the air pollutants that are emitted that the EPA has set a national ambient air standard on. So for instance, fine particulate, which is, 2.5 microns, that particulate that's only 2.5 microns in size, that's, EPA has a standard of 35 microgram per cubic meter on a 24-hour basis. Lynn counties, our monitoring sites, our current level for that is, I want to say 16. You take out the smoke events from California, Canadian wildfires, and the annual administrative, it's 9 for the annual. Current administration is looking to revert back to the 12. Either way, we're safe. Our current background minus the Canadian wildfire impacts. I believe we're at 7.4. Now, we're close. Just again, we've got a heavy industrial base, we've got ag, we've got mobile sources.
So what do you mean by this facility has to be monitored closely because of our air sheds? What's the definition of?
Just based on how close we are to the NACs, how much current industry exists in the area. Because a facility that's going through prevention of significant deterioration analysis, which this project would, because this is considered, EPA considers this one of the 28 source categories, so kind of your, I shouldn't guess why they've isolated these specific 28 types of facilities, but if they've got a heat input of over 250 million BTU per hour, then they are subject to 100 ton per year emission threshold that they'd have to go through the PST process, whereas like your typical cereal mill, like say Quaker, General Mills, that threshold is set at 250 tons per year before you have to go through a PST project. So a facility such as this, they have to do a cumulative analysis of looking at everybody else's emissions in Lynn County. They have to add that to this project's emission totals, their impact of how far out those impacts will be. And then on top of that, take in consideration the background that I just said, like it's 7.4 for the annual fine particulates. I think NOx were considered rural, so I want to say those values are. There's a 1 hour standard and there's an annual standard, so those are like 4 and 19 micrograms per cubic meter, so they have to, again, demonstrate that all these emissions collectively will not degrade your quality in the area, so.
Basically, you take all the industry in the area, they look at how much they're outputting, your emissions. But that's all combined to come under one number. And therefore, if they're already at a certain number, then this plant has to come in under, in order to keep the total underneath the big growth aggregate number, right? Is that-
That's kind of right. Yeah, so maybe I could put this in context a little bit better. So when Tony talks about national ambient air quality standards, there's 6 pollutants that EPA has set standards for, ambient standards that apply everywhere. Doesn't matter if you live in Fairfax, Iowa, or Sacramento, or LA, or wherever, the same ambient standards apply everywhere. So for particulate matter, for example, there's primary and secondary standards. So the primary standard that this plant will be challenged against is supposed to be protective of public health, with an additional safety factor for the more sensitive folks. So it's not just for anybody, it's for people that have maybe pre-existing conditions, or asthmatics or whatever it might be, right? So this standard they have to meet is supposed to be protective of public health. Another standard called secondary standard that is for public welfare. So you don't emit emissions that degrade buildings or kill vegetation or whatever it might be, right? So there's primary and secondary particulate standards, same with the other pollutants. So this is what he's talking about when he says NACs. And how we evaluate that is through dispersion modeling. So the modeling he's talking about is Tony has to build this model. Initially, he takes a source and he does the source impact analysis. So he just looks at the emissions from this source. So builds a model, sets up a Cartesian grid with a bunch of different receptors all over the place. And each of those receptors will predict ground level concentrations of whatever pollutant it is, whether it's carbon monoxide or fine particulate matter. So he does this first. And if that initial analysis says that, hey, it exceeds significant impact levels, so EPA set these significant impact levels saying, if you exceed these, you need to take the next step, right? We're assuming it will. So then he has to do the interactive or cumulative impact analysis. That's where he has to bring in all the other stacks around here, all the other emissions. We build that all into the model then and do that same analysis and determine, okay, so now are they not only meeting the national ambient air quality standards, but if it's a PSD project, there's also an increment standard they have to meet. And the increment it's basically, the EPA said that air's clean here and you can only degrade it so much. That's the increment. So they can't exceed that either. So not only do they have to make sure they can meet ambient air quality standards, but they also have to make sure they don't degrade it beyond what EPA says is okay. So that's the analysis that Tony's gonna do when he's doing the evaluation of.
So when he sets up those measuring devices, right?
It's a computer model.
It's a computer model.
Yes.
What's the radius of that he sets up?
That goes
Around
out
that plant.
about 20 kilometers, I want to say. Like DNR has us look at
Yeah, it's out.
20 kilometers plus, then you're looking at, and I'm not gonna remember this, but you take the tallest stack at each one of these facilities. And then you figure out, there's a formula DNR uses, then you add that onto 20 kilometers. So basically it encompasses every business and every major source in Lynn County. So which we have about 16 major sources. This Diamond V is our latest major source. And so in this dispersion model, I mean, each one of these receptors acts as if we have one of our ambient air monitors there, and these are spaced out 50 kilometers, about 500 meters. They're spaced 50 meters, about 500 meters away from the facility, then they get wider, it's like 100 meters out to 1,500 meters, and then maybe it's 150 meters between these receptors as you get farther and farther away from the plant, because
Right.
most of the impacts are right along the property line or right outside the property line. That's where you're gonna find your highest impacts unless we were in some sort of a, hole,
Yeah.
but we bring all the topography information in from, USGS. Meteorological data comes from the, airport. The DNR massages that data, so we have a 5-year set of Met data. So on that that currently runs 2015 to 2019, they're working on more updated Met data set. That would be probably 20. I think we're working on 2020 to 2024, I think. So it's all, and this is all spelled out in EPA regulations as far as how this process would take place. So.
Thank you. Does that help, kind of explain that piece? We'd love to put individual monitors all over the place, but those ambient monitors do exist. They're super expensive. So if we were to set up a new ambient monitoring site, multi-pollutant, it could cost us $150,000 just to get it set up initially. And then you need 3 years worth of data before you can even really assess whether or not it's in compliance with NACS or not. So, you're $300,000-$400,000 into this, and we just don't have those kind of resources. So that's why we use these computer models that EPA developed. Go ahead.
Can't that be something that Lion Energy could implement to pay for that process?
Pay for what process?
$300,000?
Add a source oriented monitor. If we had an issue, the modeling showed there's a potential issue. That is a realistic possibility that could happen, that we'd require them to put in one. But we don't anticipate that to be an issue.
Does this plant have a cooling tower, and did they ever figure out which cooling towers in Marshalltown were causing Legionnaire's disease?
This plant will not have a cooling tower. Now, this is all air cooled, so similar to the QTS data center that's going in. QTS gonna have no cooling towers to make sure their room is cooled. This plant, as far as what they've given us so far, which was back in July, there's nothing cooling towers proposed for this site.
Yeah, it's called an air cooled condenser, that type of thing. So it's like a giant radiator, if you will. So like the low pressure steam comes out through a tube and it runs into this condenser area. So there's a series of tubes with fins, then air is brought over those. So the heat is sucked out of the steam and the tubes into the air essentially and condenses the steam. That steam is routed, that condensate is routed back through for reuse into the boiler. So they recycle that. So air gets compressed, goes to the turbine, you get combustion air, goes through the heat recovery boiler, where they are using steam, right? At that point, that steam then comes off of that boiler, then gets routed through this condenser and then gets sent back. Now, there is a certain amount of blowdown that comes out of the boiler that would go to the city of Fairfax for treatment, that type of stuff. But yeah, it's not a traditional cooling tower like evaporative cooling that you see on a lot of places. As far as Marshalltown, that investigation is being led by the public health department, the state health department in conjunction with the Marshalltown public health group. So we haven't had a whole lot of involvement with that thing. So I think they're still chasing it a little bit.
I don't think anything's been officially determined that that's been caused by the power plant. So.
Yeah, those are different kind of cooling towers typically.
But that'd be a good question for Alliance today. If you were gonna put cooling towers at this site, how much additional water usage a day would it be? It would be a lot more than 65 to 75,000 pounds a day.
Yeah.
Reporting right now. So.
Yeah.
Does the airport have to comply with the same air standards, and would an expansion of the airport affect the air quality? Yes. Back this way.
those are mobile sources. We don't
Yeah,
regulate mobile sources. EPA sets standards for them. So that's like the apples and bananas type that you compared to. You made that comparison earlier. So, yeah, that's a difficult one to answer. Obviously, they're burning fuel as well. You know, they dump raw fuel when they're gonna land sometimes, so. I mean, I don't know what that impact is, honestly.
yeah, currently we only permit the emergency generators that are out there at the airport, that's the only stationary sources.
Two questions, really. The one, smell. I drive by ADM every day, and there are days it's fine, but days it's not.
Yeah.
Number two, how far along are they in this process? They have permits pulled, is this gonna happen, or is this one side of things?
So I can talk to a little bit of that. The meetings that the city council is having is just talking right now about rezoning that land out there from light industrial.
No,
No.
It's not a rezone.
It's, so do you want to speak to it then, Chris?
The only thing the city council is looking at right now is adding the power plant as a possible use in the heavy industrial district. We would be still 6 to 8 months away from rebuilding.
Okay,
It's just a zoning change that council's looking at right now.
right, so just a zoning change, that's what
Not
I'm
a
gonna do.
rezone.
Right, so just a zoning change right now, so
not a zoning,
that's what.
just the zoning code, not zoning on
A zone
property.
change.
Regulation.
I can say Alliant told me at the end of July to cease gathering any information for them to proceed with this project. They just told me that it's on hold now, because they're working on another project at the Prairie Creek site, so their efforts, they want us to get that, moving forward, because they're going coal free at the end of the year. And in terms of odor, we do have an odor ordinance. It is going away to align with the Iowa Administrative Code. When you're smelling odors, there are some volatile organics there, that's what you are experiencing, whether it's from, the alcohol loadout area or the wastewater treatment area. And those emissions are, they're accounted for, they're calculated. It's just, again, it's one of those situations where probably have an aversion happening where it's keeping that air to the ground. It also can be upset conditions process wise, whether it's, and you have the same situation going on out Cedar Rapids wastewater treatment facility.
Yeah.
That's, they spent $7 million on upgrading that whole system, and they're gonna be doing even further changes that they're working through over the next several years. So
I guess.
yeah,
We expect this.
No, you won't have that here. No, so some of the things that like those plants, wastewater treatment plant, sometimes ADM, some of the compounds you're smelling, one of the main ones is hydrogen sulfide. Has a super low odor threshold, like parts per billion, right? So folks my age, as your olfactory senses degrade, maybe it gets into the 20 parts per million, but a young person can smell that, maybe 10. And that is a tiny amount. You think about that, parts per billion. So it's easy to have any issue like in a large corn plant like that. If something gets upset in the wastewater treatment, you may get a little bit more release of that. You can definitely smell it. So
Much more predictable.
yeah, you're not gonna have a lot of that going on over here. No.
This is kind of a side note to the whole situation. We give the information on where the natural gas would be coming in.
I don't.
a great question. That's Mid-Americans, area. And, from what I've been told, municipals here say that, yeah, there is a shortage of, the natural gas in the area. I think, they're working on upgrading their infrastructures to make sure that there's plenty of gas making its way to Cedar Rapids metropolitan area.
It just begs the question how that would affect small consumers.
Yeah, valid, fair question. Yeah, I can't speak to, to how that will all play out. But I mean, obviously, there is enough now, but every project that is coming online in the area that's power related, it's all natural gas. So Janisco, IFF, International Paper, the Spirit Mill. Yeah, but they got two big gas boilers going on online. Alliance proposing to convert their second largest boiler to all natural gas. Their largest one is our convert coal to natural gas.
So I have more of a comment because, I have in front of me the Marshalltown plan emissions.
Yeah.
And the different, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, nitrous oxide coming out. So I guess my concern is we're not reading that in our community today, and so we're introducing things that are known respiratory, cardiovascular, cancerous problems into our community when we can say no. And why are we entertaining it for $350,000?
I mean, that's definitely your, the decision the community needs to make, for you, but I can tell you already have those polluters in your community. Everybody that has a furnace that burns natural gas, you're liberating the same pollutants.
But we're adding a lot more stimulus
Right, but
that we have control over. We need to
Right.
our homes.
What I'm saying is we'll have to evaluate those emissions that are coming out of that to make sure they're protective of air quality standards, right? There's a,
Yes, air quality, right, I get that, and I know that there's EPA standards that are supposed to protect us. We also know that there are failures in our industries, but, it's something that, it's more, it's something we don't have today. We're introducing all of this a lot into our atmosphere on a daily basis that's not here today for tax revenue. It's alarming.
yeah, I mean, that's a question that you guys have to answer.
Will city liability and fire department insurance be impacted? Power plant will then.
We don't know those.
That's where.
Yeah, I don't know, that's it, there's that. We really tried to get, representatives from Alliance, we tried to get as many people as we could. These guys really are focused on their wheelhouse, which is, your DNR, air quality, public health, things like that. So they're not gonna have those answers. I don't have those answers.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody does right now. Great questions that we're trying to get answers to.
Just don't know.
I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me because I did not bring them with me, but I can tell you with Prairie Creek going coal free, you're gonna have tremendous reductions. And SO2, particulates.
And the reduction isn't zero though.
It's
still
not
has
zero.
health impact. It still has health, I mean, I've been online looking at a lot of things and it still has health impacts.
Yeah,
We're just trying to keep our community safe.
no, I understand. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you. Yeah, and that again is where EPA, they develop these standards to just say, and again, they evolve they're evaluated every 5 years by a group of scientists that's looking at all this hospitalization data, doctor, determine are these current NACs, are they protective of the population? And so then once you mix in the science with the politics, then that's where, who knows where it goes from there. So, it's, but the machine's right, you're driving your car, that's temporary. People are home, you're having a campfire out back, everything has an impact, you're harvesting the field.
So talk about like, when we're having a campfire out back or we're heating our home, like how much of those things are going into the air that we're like right next to versus what you think will be in the air with this kind of stuff? Cause I think that's what that would make more sense to me, like I can compare it to something that I know, like what I'm smelling and what I'm seeing.
That's a tough comparison to make. Like, the only yardstick we really have is an axe in the analysis we do to make sure that the national ambient air quality standards are met, right? That's how we determine how a big facility like this, what kind of impact it's gonna have And then even after it's built, it's not, we don't walk away from these types of facilities. Not only do they have to have continuous emission monitors for their main pollutants, but they also have to get this permit called a tidal pipe operating permit, which imposes additional requirements on them from an operation and maintenance standpoint and monitoring standpoint and reporting. So every year they have to file 2 reports with us. One is what do they call it, semi-annual monitoring report. So they have to report to us if they've had any monitoring failures. This is on top of the quarterly reporting they're already doing, but they'll have to do that semi-annual monitoring report to show that they've not had any issues with monitoring that's required. And then they have to do an annual compliance certification that their responsible official has to sign, certifying to us under penalty of law that it's accurate in disclosing any violations they had. On top of that, we go in every 2 years and do a wall-to-wall inspection. So Marshalltown was just inspected in March 28th, 2025 by an inspector out of Region 5 at Des Moines. Didn't find any violations at that time. So we will continue to monitor this type of facility and make sure they're meeting those permit limits. Those are legally enforceable. It's like a contract. So when we issue a permit for somebody to build a stack for a facility with emissions, and we issue a permit for that stack, we expect them to be in compliance with that. And we check them. And then if they're not, then we make them come into compliance. So just so you guys know, it's not like a set it and forget it type of thing. Like, oh, whoop, we permitted it, we're walking away. It's not how it works.
And our office has these, what they call purple air monitors. So we have the main monitoring station at the public health department side by Roosevelt Middle School. But we do have several of these, you know, small, kind of like citizen science monitors that we have deployed around the community, which I want to say folks can request our office to have one installed if you're worried about a neighbor burning garbage or whatever, you know, they can. We've got a monitor, every day monitor strap, they come out, they can see what those levels are. Now, it's not, again, these aren't EPA certified monitor, but it kind of gives you an idea of like, you know, particulates in the air. I don't believe they monitor any of the gases like SO2 or nitrogen oxides. And again, they're not EPA certified because I think they have issues handling humidity, and so the levels, the readings can be skewed. So, that would be something. All our office, one of our monitoring folks, if you're interested in. And like, let's say this plan does get built, city wants to put some of those up around, so just for curiosity's sake, I guess, you know, that would be a possibility.
You know, we can talk a little bit about the whole campfire thing and leaf burning, stuff like, there's a reason that leaf burning is banned in Cedar Rapids, Hiawatha, Robbins, Marion, because it's incomplete combustion, generates a lot of smoke, and it doesn't disperse very well. So when a smoke plume usually disperses 2 ways. There's either buoyancy, so there's a temperature difference, so hot air rises, or it's momentum. Well, it doesn't have a whole lot of momentum if you're burning leaves, right? So the plume comes up till it kind of reaches the same temperature as the surrounding air, just levels out. It just fumigates the entire community. And we can see particulate levels rise to hazardous levels in those situations. That's why a lot of people ban those. How much, you know, some people like the smell of it, it sends other people to the hospital. So that can have a really big impact. I can tell you, in my area, we get a lot of open burning complaints from neighbors because of neighbors burning whatever they shouldn't be burning, and it's impacting their health. So they file a complaint with us. We go and see what they're burning. If they're not burning something that's legal, then we make them stop. So I can't tell you, it's again, different magnitude. We're talking hundreds of tons, you know, with a really tall stack, or, you know, maybe whatever it is, pounds that are coming off of something like that. So it's not the same order of magnitude even. Does that help? I mean, it's hard to compare.
I was curious about fire department, Fairfax taking care of it. If they're gonna need anything special, I mean, they're volunteer.
Not from we don't have any rules that require them to do something like that. I can't really speak to, do we have anybody from the fire department here? I mean, do you guys get involved with some of like Rivero or
So
Regen?
I know like, Marshalltown, they didn't have a ladder truck, I don't think, before that plant went in, they pretty much said we're gonna need a ladder truck, and now they have a ladder truck.
The ladder truck cost,
$2.2 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they got that money from Alliance, I would think, so they provided that for them. They had, that's,
That's good. It's good to know. I didn't
they,
know how that worked.
yeah, they're not gonna, I don't know. No, I guess.
Yeah, thank you.
I just know they did help Marshalltown get that stuff, to be able to help them out.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask, unless I missed it, I don't think you talked too much about the wastewater.
Yeah.
I'm talking about myself personally, I have property probably a mile and a half from the.
Yeah.
Site, and I'm real concerned, I mean, I read in the newspaper about, I'm not the expert, okay? But I read about some wells that were drilled that were on permits.
Yeah.
And I'm very concerned about the water. You talk about this plant, what sort of chemicals would be put into the groundwater?
Yeah.
And what are the precautions that are being taken, what monitoring is being done?
Sure.
Sure. There are water, question of this, I'm sure we have our own private wells here in the area.
Yeah, that's a good question. This plant, from what I know from the design, that they're not gonna have a direct discharge, so power plants, a lot of times they would, like coal plants, they'd have discharge to ash ponds. And then that would discharge to, a creek or something like that. Also, their cooling tower and boiler blowdown water would do that as well. In this situation where they don't have a traditional cooling tower, they're not gonna generate a tremendous amount of wastewater. I mean, they'll have some wastewater, no doubt. Because they constantly have to blow down a certain amount of their boiler water because it gets too many dissolved solids and things like that in there. So I anticipate these guys will send that to city of Fairfax and not apply for a permit to direct discharge Prairie Creek or something like that. So you shouldn't see any impact to local groundwater that way. Go through the sort of. So especially since their cooling tower is it's a dry cooling tower, if you will. So it's a little bit different.
So there's no chemicals from this process, from the process itself, that get seeped into the ground from the plant?
They're gonna
Not
be,
just the wastewater.
Yeah.
Any sort of chemicals that.
I mean, they'll be using fluids for lubrication and stuff like that. There's gonna be some treatment chemicals they put in the water, the boiler water itself. But that, again, will go to the city of Fairfax wastewater treatment plant to get treated before it gets discharged. It won't get discharged to the ground.
How does the groundwater get monitored?
How's the groundwater get monitored?
How does the water table get monitored?
So, in this situation where they don't have a wastewater pond or an ash pond, we wouldn't require monitoring wells or anything like that associated with this type of facility. So I don't know, we wouldn't be doing groundwater monitoring of the water table in that area. The violations that you mentioned before associated with the data centers was they were pumping water out of the water table to put in sewer infrastructure, water and wastewater. So the water table is so high there, they have to lower that so they can put in the pipes for the water and wastewater for those facilities. And then when they're done, they have to properly abandon those wells and the water table recharges and it's like it was before. So it's a alluvial aquifer, sand gravel, unconfined. It's not a confined aquifer that people are drinking out of. So that was some of the concern. Cause it was they'll pump a lot of water when they're trying to lower the water table. So I can see why it would raise a lot of eyebrows in that situation.
Talk about whatever stuff getting sent back to Fairfax, water disposal. Or
Yeah, wastewater treatment, yeah.
What's that gonna cost us? I mean, that's.
They have to pay for that.
Yeah,
There'll be a service fee that they'll pay the city of Fairfax. That was part of that 35,000 a month or whatever it was that they estimated for the water and the wastewater.
$100,000
Well,
a
yeah,
year.
Brian's letter at the bottom talks about the wastewater. And then Alliance knows that the sewage lift station needs to be put in, and Alliance already proposing to pay for that. So
Okay.
that would fall on Alliance.
Yeah, they usually put in that structure. So but they will have to pay Fairfax for the water and the wastewater to use it and to treat it. So. Any other questions? Or did we thoroughly confuse everything? Did we? Some of this air stuff gets a little bit wonky, and it's even hard for us to explain sometimes. But there, you had really good questions.
Can I just ask a common
Yeah.
sense question?
Yeah.
Would our air be better with it or without it?
So,
Common sense question.
yeah, I mean, I think you know the answer to that, right?
Right.
There's gonna be there'll be some impact. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's not a zero sum game.
Right.
You know, what I can say is if they build it anywhere close, you're gonna have similar impacts, right? So if
But
it goes
not
to
as
Cedar Rapids,
dense. Yeah, because it
right
said here.
across the
the highest-
way, you know,
You said the highest impact is over our town.
it's
Yeah.
usually, yeah, right at the fence line,
And
yeah.
that's where.
Yep, that's where, and that has to meet ambient air quality standards.
Right,
So that has to
still,
meet the most protective standards there. So it's
within their
less
property
on the property line, not within, at
Well,
the property line.
of the plant.
At the, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry, but I arrived here late and never got an idea of where this is located. Can you give me an idea of the ballpark down there? Where is it located?
So, do you know where Trevero is out there? Trevero,
Off the left side, left your road. The
Yeah.
side of.
Yep.
Okay.
it's that,
Google.
that L-shaped
They have
lot.
decided on.
All right, over there.
How far east of left your road?
I think it's right on the corner.
On the backside
On
of
the
Trevero, I'm
backside
not
of
sure how far
Trevero.
Trevero sits off of
Yeah,
left of here.
Yeah, the proposed is not right on the corner, but they have not decided on their site. They're still in the siting process.
Obviously, because prevailing wind is south to east, coming from the south, heading east. The further east it is, the less it's gonna have an impact on our neighborhoods. Fairfax. Usually, far enough east.
Yeah, and I think that would talk back to the modeling that Tony was talking about, that they have to do, right? They have to take all the wind and all the modeling from 5 years, was it?
Yeah, so it's looking at all those different, windrows from over the course of the year, whether it's coming out north, south, everywhere, and then it's predicting based. Yeah, where is the greatest impact, whether maybe it's on the northwest side, you know, wherever that is, and then from there. They just have to ensure that, yeah, they're gonna be able to meet those EPA clean air standards. Wherever around the property that has high risk.
I've heard a lot of talk about prevailing winds in this area. Is there a prevailing wind? And if so, where does it come from?
I wish we had a windrow.
Yeah.
I mean, we can look that data up and it'll show a windrows and show you what is it. I think what I remember, you know, we had a lot of west, southwest type of,
West, southwest.
yeah, that's what I remember, but you know, that could change some. So we actually have that data and I'm sure we could get a windrows pulled together and send it so you guys can see that. That would be helpful.
Yeah, this drawing that's from the CID. Am I reading this correctly? I know this is what you guys done, but it looks like the. Runway. They're showing something down here that would indicate that it would be. Stat. Or what is that?
I wouldn't know.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand.
Oh, see, here we go. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking that question, I don't know if you guys are in that situation, is that the airport runway going from over Fairfax.
The land, no, well, as part of the landing path is what they're saying.
It would be also part of the takeoff time.
So the runway itself, from what I understand, is going to go east-west.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
so basically, you've got Wright Brothers here, it's gonna go to the north side of Wright Brothers, they're actually supposedly gonna close Edgewood from 76 up to Wright Brothers, always the runway will go over a portion of that as well.
No, it's still over half of it. It would be closed.
76. I believe, or I'm sorry, Edgewood, they're gonna close at 76 is what I was told, Wright Brothers will stay open, and that will go over Wright Brothers, is what I.
It'll go over the road, but not close 76.
Not close to, so 70, so you still be able to get to the airport at 76?
Yeah.
Either way, okay,
I probably
thank
got
you.
wrong information, but I thought.
But he's west on the runway, correct? Yeah, so.
Yeah, I thought there was a road runway over, we'd be able to find that.
No, the Cedar Rapids study showed that. Like it does now, right? The planes come over Fairfax.
Great, that, I wasn't sure. Okay, thanks.
So instead of building this out in the middle of nowhere, it's being built on the edge of the city, was the major contributor to that, the water. That why it's there.
I mean, you have to ask, I mean, they have a large, substation there, infrastructure is close to the data centers. I don't know what all went into that decision, but.
I can speak to that. So
Okay.
the reason that they're looking at that parcel is because they own it. So that's a buying property, so it's just a buy-in. So that's what that is.
You have to ask the Lion for sure why they selected that.
Yeah, so it's already paid for.
So this is the site, like, this is Trevero here. And then they own this whole parcel, right? So they own this parcel and the thought is in this corner, is that right, Cynthia?
That's what they are
That's what
discussing.
Discussed, right, that's the thought. So Trevero, our ball fields are somewhere over in this area. And then they own this whole area of land. That's where it would be. I do.
There's an industrial park out there that's been designated for many years, called
Right.
Big Cedar. And they own it.
Yeah, that's the last section of Big Cedar that is not developed.
We are on the very west end of.
Yeah. Right.
And from what I understand, years ago, Cedar Rapids, or that Big Cedar property was like in the top three. I mean, it was, you guys almost had a Toyota Mazda at a factory facility.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't remember how many there is in the state, but there's something like between 5 and 8, or something like that, then. Of those kinds of designated properties.
Why don't you mute
Yeah.
your phone so we don't hear you say stuff like
Yeah, I
that?
don't doubt it one bit.
Question. We drove to Marshall County today to specifically see the plant and see what we're looking at here, and I would urge everyone to do that and open my eyes a little bit. But one thing, and I radio of it, that there's a consistent low hum. Yes, I heard the same hum. It was very loud. It was, yes. For me, it was high pitched, it was constant, and it was a constant awful. So what does that do for public health? It's awful, and people's hearing.
Words from, that's.
I think that's kind of, I will say, when I was there and I was standing in that marsh, all I could hear was cricket. So I don't know if it's the time that people go, I would say that.
It was today at 12:30.
Okay, yeah, I was a Saturday morning at like 9,
I'm
9:30, something
Monday
like that.
morning, and it was.
But I mean, I didn't, like, I sent Amy a recording while I was standing there and literally could just hear cricket. I mean, it was, my air conditioner on the side of my house was louder than what I was hearing, but again, that was just.
I also had.
Yeah.
A video that there wasn't. Yeah.
Okay, which, yeah,
I just think like, maybe,
maybe it's time frame.
let's take a drive, caravan, Marshall's that, you know, I mean, I think that's gonna be. Like, one of the best things we could do as citizens to go take a drive and see it for ourselves, right?
So what would potentially is that from that?
Noise.
I have no idea. Yeah, it could be an issue with the cooling tower, it could be any number of things. It's, maybe they had a malfunction going on, I don't know. I just hard to say I'm not being there.
Building, when Mr. Harder, I think was saying, he was in here, and he was like, yeah, there's giant turbines moving and there, you can hear it sounds, he admitted there.
Yeah.
And there is, I mean, it was awful.
And I think there are, I want to say regulations out there that have got acceptable decibel levels that maybe, I'm just thinking of what the Scraps Police Department's forces. So can't speak to what those levels are, where to find.
We'll get you really quick. Do we,
And I think that's a simple solution. All you have to do is figure out where that plant's gonna go. So whatever distance that is to outside the property line. go to the Marshalltown plant, stand outside that distance and take a decibel reading, see, what's your decibel? I think it's probably not a big deal.
Do you guys have an ordinance in Fairfax for noise?
I think they did that, Jeff, didn't they, knows that had information at the last council meeting.
It wasn't the decibel
I
reading,
mean, they would have to comply with all local.
Or something.
but it was, the reading was off.
Yeah.
What method you would read that, so.
Do we have any idea where the other proposed sites are that they're exploring?
I've only heard rumors. One of which is up the road on 80th or in that kind of along Highway 30 area. That's again, just a rumor. Other than that, no, I would. Based on what's going on with the data centers, I'm guessing they're gonna want it closed. It's just, I mean, as an electrician, right, like that one data center uses the same amount of electricity as like 10,000 homes, I think, or something like that. So, you know, ITC's already got a big distribution station or a substation out there by the ball fields. It's a nice place to hook up to, so, but Alliant did not say, and they have not said any other location.
Is that Fairfax land out there?
Up that way?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. I believe I don't know where we end, but we end that way, I think.
I can bring
the
up-
development that Schrader had.
I can bring up the city limits on the end.
Oh, okay. I think the Schrader development is where we end, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, they almost, I think, 30, it goes almost to their rock crushing.
Is it? Okay.
So the red is our city limits, the pink is future Fairfax annexation area. Right, Chris?
Yes. And the blue is Cedar Rapids annexation. Area A is Cedar Rapids, area B is here.
So where are you saying you have the public here? This was Schrader's, that currently?
He's not listening.
So, sorry. This guy's new information. Whoa,
Breaking.
so apparently the rumor that's going around right now is it's basically right in this area right here. So this is current Fairfax in the red, correct?
Yes,
This is future Fairfax or proposed
yes.
down the road. They're talking about right here. So, you know, when we have a wind out of the northwest, it goes that way. So. That's apparently another proposed facility that's being discussed.
Is that Lynn County then?
That's still in.
Currently Lynn County.
Well, you guys have some say on anything built within what, a couple miles of city limits or further?
Very little.
How that works.
So you were talking a little bit about measuring the particulates for.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I was just wondering, obviously this is something that we're looking at in the future. And would there be any concern that there has been proposals to repeal the greenhouse gas emissions standards?
Well, the greenhouse gases are different than the particulates.
Right.
I mean,
So
yeah,
this would remove standards that apply to both existing coal and new natural gas.
so yeah, so we will just have to go with whatever regulations are in place at the time. So like, right now, we're still putting in greenhouse gas emission limits that, PSD projects. Any PSD permits, there's still limits that need to be established for that, for CO2. Yeah, I mean, as you see, overall, this is temporary, but we got about 90-degree weather in September, October, and it's a concern. I'm not getting into the whole debate whether, the climate's changing or whatnot, but again, it depends on which administration thinks it's real or doesn't think it's real, and so we just go with whatever the current regs are at the time, so.
So are those guidelines set when you do the permitting or at the end of the?
Yeah, whatever is in effect at the time that, I was gonna push, if they were to change the process, think go with what's in it, that the time they apply for the application. Yeah, but that could change, like, let's say. There was a change in the regulation and that could be a common indicator to have it because they don't take these out. There's. The rules change, so.
Just a comment, that was discussed at the last council meeting, you guys haven't listened to it yet. But yes, that's a very politically charged thing, so whatever they are planning on it being where it's at now, because in 2.5 years from now. Well, they can flip the end or it could be flipped again, right? So they can't. They're not planning on having to go back and retrofit with their comment, so.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, with a plant like this, there's really. You have to look at technologically and economically feasible options to control CO2. So does it make sense to take that exhaust plume and then somehow get it to the point where you're sequestering it underground or whatever versus good combustion practices to make sure that you are minimizing the amount of CO2 that's finally emitted once that exhaust stream exits that stack. And so that's really what I'd say 89%, 100% of facilities are doing in Iowa currently. They're just designing systems, whether it's a turbine system like this or it's a engine. They are just designing them to where they're going to emit as little as possible, that they have to report those emissions to EPA, the greenhouse gas reporting rule. Which that could go away, but there are still limits, a permit that says, hey, you can't emit more than 3,000 tons of CO2. And yeah, they do a test, they demonstrate that they're complying with that limit, just like they would any other pollutants. So just to verify that, yeah, they are busting lots of that gas as efficiently as possible.
Do we have any information or, are there any knowledge for permits filed for a second power plant? Natural gas plant?
I mean, currently Alliant has in-house, so Prairie Creek Station is going gas or coal free at the end of the year. So yeah, we have an application for that Prairie Creek site for 5 very large natural gas fired engines that are gonna take place of their coal boilers. So that's currently under review. I mean, it's behind schedule on, our department's been hit with projects this year, so hopefully that should go out on public notice at some point, hopefully yet this year. But yeah, it's not a turbine system, it's not boilers, it's literally, well, you guys got a generator outside this city hall, so think of it one probably about 100 times larger than that one. I don't know the specs on it offhand, but there's gonna be 5 of those. They'll have, they went through this entire process already of making sure that all the air quality is going to be not get meeting for the installation of this project. So, and they can't even take into account, they can't even take credit for all the reductions in emissions from eliminating coal because of a consent decree that they signed with EPA back in 2014 or so, several years ago, so they've had time. So I mean, they had to convert their largest boiler to coal or to gas several years ago, and then this is the last. They have to retire or refuel the remaining coal-fired boilers on site. So, yeah. Like I said, international paper and IFF, yeah, they have got their own little boiler projects ongoing. Because they were Prairie Creek's Alliance customers.
Just a question follow up on that. I guess just disregarding this plan specifically, this proposed site specifically, what are the odds of a natural gas power plant being built within, say, 2 miles of city limits there in the next 5 years, regardless of what this site does? Just based upon your experience with permitting and what they're allowed to do, what they're probably going to do to replace the coal plant on Prairie Creek.
Yeah, they will align, had a
Second plant, sorry.
similar project that they are, like at Prairie Creek, put in engines, they've got one of those. I don't know if it's public knowledge yet, but there is another one of those types of projects proposed in, elsewhere in Iowa. Not one of these turbine plants, again, it's gonna be another, putting in engines, at another one of their coal-fired, sites, that's also presumably going coal-free, probably under that same consent agreement with EPA.
The big question for Alliant. You know, it's hard for us to speculate. You know, they'll be able to tell you.
No, my point was, is like, probably going in somewhere on that map you're looking at on the screen, so my point was, it's $350,000 is not a huge number, so that's annually, right? So I just wanted to keep in mind. Probably going in somewhere on that map. Just a comment, because we thought there's a question about air quality being worse. That's true, but it's gonna happen regardless. And that's just the reality of it, so just speaking as a Fairfax resident, might as well benefit from it, right? So.
Yeah, there's 2.2 million in up in the fire station and then upgrades to the water treatment facility, which supposedly Alliant is gonna pay 100% of. Supposedly.
Well, that'd be a good question for them. I mean, that'd be a good question for them at the next meeting.
Yeah, we don't speak for Alliant.
Yeah, I mean.
Well,
we're
again,
hoping to come, but-
And these are things that, you know, I mean, if Alliant wants to come.
Not saying that they will.
Right, but
Yeah.
Supposedly.
if, you know, if the city of if they wanna have a negotiation, and that's part of the city of Fairfax's
Yeah.
negotiation, is, hey, if you wanna put this here, we have some rules. Then, you know, that's one thing. I mean, the one note did allude to the fact that, you know, the city of Fairfax is gonna make them hold to a standard in certain things. So, you know, I would imagine, or would like to think that that would be on the negotiating table if this ended up getting to that point.
Can I ask a dumb question, and it really is, because I don't know, if they get, if this hypothetically goes through, they get to build their power plant. Do they get to build something else energy wise on that land too, or do they have to come back and ask the city? You know, they do. That's my question. Anybody know? I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
We'd have to real research from
Just, like another type of plant, or in addition to their plant, or something else that's gonna generate, you know, electricity in a way.
Any industrial, residential property owner would have to come to the city for any type of addition of any structure. If you're talking about, I know Marshalltown has a lot of solar project, that probably wouldn't be allowed.
So Chris, can you like,
I'm sorry, I took that down.
can you say that so everybody can hear that, Chris? Well, can you kind of repeat what, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just was. She had mentioned a second source of power at this site, and I immediately thought the Marshalltown plant has quite a bit of solar around it. That more than likely would not be allowed anywhere near Fairfax because of the proximity to the airport and the glare factor of solar panels. Solar and wind are not options for the Fairfax area, because the height of the prevailing wind for the wind-driven turbines is 600 and some feet off the ground, and then again, the proximity to the airport. And then the solar fields glare with the proximity to the airport would be detrimental to the pilots there.
Yeah, but I don't understand, because this is detrimental to them too in their report.
For future run.
No.
Need to read the
No,
report.
I read the pilot's letters. And they are the ones flying the plane, and they have a big.
That's for the future runway.
No, it wasn't.
I know people
It wasn't.
right next to the airport that have already had.
Okay, that's a conversation to have with the airport when they're at the meeting next time.
So it's not true.
They'll come back and talk to us anyway.
Yeah, I don't know, just one thought that I had on the airport and, you know, when you talk about, when they focus solely on this plant with Fairfax, and to me, they overlooked QTS and Google and the data sites. From my understanding, is it Google that has 36 cooling towers?
Correct.
That 60 feet apiece? Does that sound right? Or 60 feet tall?
Yeah, I do not know the heights on it, but
Yeah.
they're, I think they're above the roof line of the buildings. I believe.
Yes. So, just, again, I understand their report and their concerns and stuff like that, but I feel like they grossly overlooked what was happening right down the road as well. I wasn't included in their study at all, and I don't understand why. In Cedar Rapids, maybe, I don't know, but again, it's just, it's, 60 to 36 cooling towers at just Google, that doesn't include GPS, that's just Google.
Shane, can you expand on that, what he's talking about?
Cooling
On
towers?
those cooling towers at the data center, what they are compared to, Alliance? And-
Yeah, they're traditional evaporative cooling. So if you want to talk about water usage, they're gonna use a lot of water. So one of those cooling towers may run about 5,000 to 6,000 gallons a minute. We're talking 7 million gallons, a day for once.
There's how many?
There's 36 of them. So some of that, so there's a lot of water that gets,
And that evaporates into the atmosphere.
yeah, for me, does that have to combine for all of them, or is that just one? Remember?
I do not remember, I think it's 36 towers.
Where does that water
Towers are 2 cells.
Cedar Rapids. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember if it's per tower or if that's it was a collection permit. So
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's a lot. I mean, they're a big water user. They get their water from the city of Cedar Rapids. So they won't have like their own wells on site. QTS will have a well, production well, but they'll have more like normal industrial usage for comfort cooling and landscape, irrigation type stuff, grounds washing, whatever it might be.
So based on your experience, and your guys' knowledge, what impact the airport, what should their concern be that Google? When we talk 60 feet and water cooled, how does that affect the airport?
We really don't know honestly, because those are, so you have either natural draft cooling towers, like you see at a nuclear plant. That has the kind of the misshapen hourglass type thing. Or you have mechanical draft, and these will be mechanical draft, it means they'll have fans that'll be either on top, so they're inducing a draft, or down below in forced draft. So they're gonna spray water in there and they'll blast that through there to cool it. Very efficient, but uses a lot of water. So you will see some plumes from a cooling tower when it's super cold out, just like you do from ADM's cooling towers, or just like you see from these combined cycle combustion turbine stacks. When you reach the dew point, you're gonna condense. So that's how it works.
Yeah, I don't know what that height level is where the airport gets concerned with, and proximity. That is definitely all airport driven. They're looking at it from, when they contact us, the line, they were trying to find that sweet spot as far as the stack height to where it was gonna be okay for the airport. Yep, while again, maintaining the clean air standards. And so, so that's where they were at, trying to figure out, find that harmony. And so, and I don't know what height, if any, the airport says they would be acceptable with. But again, I think they were also concerned with like thermal plumes as well that would come off of those stacks. So it wasn't only the height, it was also, turbulence to the pilots coming in for their landings, so.
Does anybody have anything else for air quality, DNR? Anything that's kind of in those guys' wheelhouse?
Very interesting.
Pretty narrow.
And I say, if you wanna know any toxins that are in natural gas combustion, it's the same type of, benzene formaldehyde, small amounts, no different than, again, your automobile, or your furnace at home as part of those levels. We recognize those levels, but they're not really going to be causing any harm based on by the time those emissions. First of all, the concentration they're at, and then again, by the time the flows would actually come to ground level, we could be breathing them in. So like Minnesota, they do have a pretty robust air toxics modeling program to where, you know, they would definitively determine, you know, what those safe levels are. Iowa does not, you know, air toxics modeling. But again, and again, all this information would be in the application. That would, again, would be out there for public consumption, so. And permits that are on public notice, we don't public notice every permit, it's only permits that are, Title V permits at facilities that are major companies, and then any kind of PSD projects, so. And have gone to Glenn County Public Health's air quality, public participation webpage, so. And that's where you would see, and also DNR's website would also have that same information available to see there, so like I said, hopefully here in the next month, you know, the Alliance Cedar River Generating Station project will be out there on public notice, that's the plan going in at Prairie Creek, five big engines, so. But we'll see again, we're working hand in hand with DNR and Alliance trying to get those permits issued, because obviously they want to and need to get going on that particular project, so.
So when we talk about concentration, just of the two big pollutants I talked about, the CO and the NOx, those are ones that we anticipate to have the most mass. They'll likely have, if these permits model what we do and what we did in Marshalltown, they'll have to meet a 2 part per million standard for both CO and NOx. So to put that in perspective, like you're sitting downtown Cedar Rapids, inside the cab of your car in traffic, you're probably experiencing 2 to 5 parts per million CO. So now it'll be higher when they start up because their controls have to warm up, just like your catalytic converter on your car. Their controls do. So there's a different emission standard. So when they start up and shut down, so if you see them say we're gonna have X number of startups, that's why they're disclosing that, because we know the emission profile will be different. And they'll set different standards for those periods. So the CO is just like your catalytic converter of your car, essentially. So it'll run through a large catalyst. It gets reduced from CO, actually it's oxidized from CO to CO2. The NOx gets reduced. They'll use a reductant. I think they're probably use ammonia or something like that as a reducing agent. So that's how they control it. It's a selective catalytic reduction control. Very high, I mean, as far as our world goes, it's pretty high tech. So state-of-the-art control, like.
Yeah, basically turns that, those nitrogen oxides into just plain nitrogen and water, so. And then,
I don't know if that helps at all, but that's what they do.
Okay. I did want to touch on one more thing. We did receive a letter from Alliance, Cynthia, if you want to pop that up. Sorry, you have to get up and.
I know, sorry.
Had to wait for
Hey, Bernie.
More so the mouse than her. But yeah, just letter that we got from Alliant, says I just received the statement reviewed by our team. Below, please find the statement for your town hall meeting. We appreciate the invitation to participate in the town hall series regarding our proposed combined cycle project. While Alliant Energy has not selected a site for the proposed project, we are deprioritizing the original Fairfax location at this time. We continue to evaluate the other viable sites in the region through our site selection process. So as Tony alluded to earlier, they shut down the permitting process or the inquiry, and you said July, right?
Yeah, end of July.
End of July. So this is kind of, I guess, an official letter from them that they're shopping around a little bit. But they say in the region. So I don't know what that means, but that was a letter that we got, obviously, from Emily and Alliant today, so.
The difficulty is they can move it just a few thousand feet to the east and be in Cedar Rapids territory, and it's the same damn one.
So, yeah, I mean, they can move it down the road to Cedar Rapids, they can move it up there to Cedar Rapids, I mean, you know, we would have no say in that, so.
I can tell you that Alliant had an extremely difficult job getting this plant, to the point where it could be permitted at Prairie Creek, just because, again, of all of the industry, and they're just wanting to put in all natural gas fire equipment at that particular location. I mean, industry is so heavy down here on the south side of Cedar Rapids that it's just, and this was the first project where they had to evaluate fine particulate PM 2.5. That is the pollutant that has every industry, on edge as far as, I mean, it's definitely, you talk about, you want economic growth, you want more jobs, more business in the community. But I can tell you that it's, right, if your facilities have got emissions where they are above certain thresholds, then yeah, getting it to be viable is definitely difficult. The Alliance seriously considered abandoning that particular site, just because it was that close. And so they were having issues with, again, all this dispersion modeling and all the interactive sources and everything. So, it's, we have to work with DNR closely on that. And so we're able to find a way that it can still, on paper, yeah, go through and be constructed.
When did
So
you say they were starting on that? When did you say they were starting on that?
they are not starting, well, they wanted to get started, this month, but it's still in the permitting review process. So once we have the permits and the evaluations all to a T, to DNR's satisfaction, and Alliant doesn't have any comments on it, then it would go to EPA. They get a 10-day pre-public notice period where they can review it and see if they have any comments. After that, then it goes to the 30-day public comments, so we'll be open for anybody around the country to comment. And then after that 30-day period ends, then the department compiles all the comments, did all the response to the summary, addressing any comments. And after that, then it gets issued. So, yeah, so when all that's gonna take place now, and then the question is, let's say the federal government stays shut down for, 4 months, 6 months, will we wait for EPA to open back up to do business to get their 2 cents? I'm guessing not, and we'll just run the risk of EPA commenting after the fact, should they, should that all happen while the government's shut down. So I don't, but again, that's DNR's call, whether that would happen, and I haven't had that conversation with them yet, so.
And I got a question for you, in your professional opinion. How worried should residents be about the air quality if this plant goes in, 1 being not at all, and 10 being extremely worried?
I mean, it's, again, we're gonna use our NAC standards as that yardstick. So, we're not gonna speculate. If it meets the ambient requirements, it meets them.
So that'd be the one.
So that's how we'd evaluate it, honestly. So we don't really, can't really tell you how I feel or what he feels. It doesn't really matter. We're here just to tell you, give you a little peek, because we're not for or against this project. We're just here to give you a little, try to answer some questions, give you a little peek into our world on how we look at some of these plants. I don't do as much anymore. Tony lives this every day. I run all the other environmental programs from a compliance enforcement standpoint. I don't issue any permits anymore. I used to run the Lynn County program 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. But now I focus on water, wastewater, air quality, stormwater, and ground storage tanks, everything, animal feeding operations. So we're the ones that go out and do the complaints, the complaint investigations, routine inspections, we respond to spills. That's what my team does. I just have a little bit of a, I've probably forgotten more than I remembered, but I used to work in this world too, so.
Yeah, there's just inherently less toxics from natural gas combustion. We've not burning coal, we don't have, you no longer have the lead, the cadmium, the
Mercury.
mercury, yeah. So it's, definitely, again, natural gas is the cleanest fuel we have outside of nuclear, I mean, so. And yeah, and that could be coming back to the area, shortly as well, so, I mean, obviously, I think, after a line goes coal free, then it's up to ADM whether they elect to go coal free at some point. I think Cedar Rapids, has a goal that they want their city to be coal free by 2050 maybe, but again, I don't know if they had conversation with ADM on moving towards that direction or not. I mean, we are in no position to dictate, you have to see this coal combustion. But ADM has assigned that, so they've gone through the PWD process, several times, and yeah, that plan with all of their coal combustion with also it's the max.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you, everybody, for coming. So, quick, my wife Sue's in the corner. If it's okay with everybody, if you have an email address that you would like to supply her in a couple days, I would like to send everybody an email and just, are you a yes, or are you a no? I'm planning on attending the council meeting on the 14th, and I can just kind of deliver a little bit of feedback from our meetings with kind of a yes, no idea of what the community is thinking, because I know the council members that I've talked to would like to know what the community is thinking. Also, feel free to reach out to your council members. We've been trying to have, we had Mary Ann and Tom here at the original first reading of the change in zoning. Mary Ann was a no, Tom was a yes. Next week, on Wednesday night, we will have Dan and Mike Daly will be here, which again, one no, one yes from the first reading. So that's what we're trying to put together. So if you'd like to share your email address, I can send you an email in a couple days and just state your thoughts. I'm happy to share that with the council because they do want to know what everybody thinks.
And next week, it's just a repeat of
Yes.
this.
Next week's a repeat of this week, yes. Again, no rep from Alliant. Tony is unable to be here next week. Shane has graciously agreed to come again on his own time.
Yeah.
So, all right, but yes.
Please tell your friends that they come tonight to come next week and join the conversation.
Yep, and Cynthia will post this to the YouTube,
City's YouTube.
the city's YouTube.
Oh, and,
yeah.
your
If-
packets, if you're not gonna eat them, please leave them with Sue, so, we can recycle those.
Yeah, save a little money for next
And you
week.
can see all the documents on our website.
Yeah, all the documents are on the portal on the website.
And we shared them on, I shared a link on the event too on Facebook, if you are on social media.